today to find out how we can protect people and the planet from this massive polluter, Drax, which is the biggest tree burner in the entire world. And as we've been saying, Katie and I work with Mary as part of the Stop Burning Trees Coalition, which is an amazing group of campaigners, mostly based in the UK, and we're trying to protect forests around the world that are being cut down to burn in UK power stations, particularly in Drax in Yorkshire. And we're also from Biofuel Watch, and it's wonderful to be working as part of a global movement of campaigners who are protecting forests from this industry that is burning trees. And I'm going to give a brief introduction to Drax and why it's so important for us to take action. And then we're very excited to be hearing from Adam about what Drax is doing in the southern USA and how people are standing up to this big polluter. And then we're going to hear about how we could have a fairer energy system with Stu and how we could actually use our energy bills to pay for really green, climate-friendly alternatives to these subsidies that are funding Drax's tree burning. And then we've got a really big week of action coming up next week because it's Drax's AGM on the 1st of May, and there are going to be lots of fun actions happening across the UK, and we're very excited that Mary is going to be telling us more about them. So first of all, just to start off with, we are part of this global movement of people who are campaigning against this massive polluter, Drax. And I'd like to start with a really inspirational quote from Greta Thunberg, who's saying, "I'm telling you, there is hope. I have seen it, but it doesn't come from the governments or the corporations. It comes from the people." And we are lucky enough to work with amazing campaigners across the USA, like Dogwood Alliance in the southeastern USA. And we're joined by our colleague Gary, who's doing amazing work campaigning in California against Drax. And we're also working with wonderful activists and campaigners here in the UK, like Fuel Poverty Action. And there's a picture in the bottom right, an amazing action that Mary organised with Greenpeace and Stop Burning Trees and had real ends at it. And we're part of this huge coalition called Cut Carbon Not Forests, which is groups from the USA and Canada. And we're all working together to stop this massive tree burning company, Drax. And this is part of, we're fighting against a massive industry, the biomass industry, which is burning trees. And it claims that burning wood is a green, renewable, and carbon neutral alternative to burning fossil fuels. But what's actually happening is that these companies are cutting down precious forests like this one in the left-hand picture from the southeastern USA. They're turning the trees into tiny wood pellets, shipping them across the ocean, and then burning them in UK power stations. And the UK government is heavily invested in this industry. The UK is actually the biggest subsidizer of bioenergy in the whole of Europe. And the majority of the wood burning is happening at this massive power station we can see here, Drax, in Selby in Yorkshire. And Drax is the UK's single largest carbon emitter. It's emitted over 13 million tonnes of carbon dioxide in 2024. And it's also the biggest burner of wood in the entire world and the second biggest producer of wood pellets. And the vast majority of the wood that it's burning is imported, and it's burning wood from clear-felled forests in the southern USA, Canada, Estonia, and Latvia. And the vast majority of the wood that Drax is burning comes from these beautiful forests in the southeastern USA that Adam's going to tell us more about. These forests are at the heart of a global biodiversity hotspot. They're home to many rare and endangered species, including black bears, salamanders, and many species of birds. And they're also incredibly important for communities because the forests protect people from extreme weather and flooding that are getting much more severe as the climate crisis worsens. And what's happening is these forests are being completely cut down, and local communities literally cannot breathe because of the toxic wood dust. that they're exposed to all the time. It's causing very serious health conditions like cancer, heart disease, and Drax has been accused of driving environmental racism in the southern USA after settling air pollution violation claims in Louisiana. And the company has been fined multiple times for violating air pollution laws in the southern USA. Drax is also burning huge amounts of wood from British Columbia in Canada. Again, these are incredibly important forests for wildlife. They're home to many endangered species like the rare caribou, which is threatened. And you may have seen BBC Panorama did an incredible investigation with a wonderful organization called Conservation North in British Columbia. And this investigation found that Drax is cutting down primary forests in Canada. These are forests that have never been cut before. And Panorama went back to look at the forest in 2024 and found that Drax is still burning wood from primary forests. And the company has been misreporting its sustainability data. And BBC Newsnight has discovered that Drax breached environmental laws at its pellet mills in Canada 189 times. As well as burning wood from Canada and America, Drax is also burning wood from biodiverse forests in Estonia and Latvia. Again, these forests are incredibly important for wildlife, including for flying squirrels that you can see in the middle. And Channel 4 News discovered that even supposedly protected forests are being cut down for the UK biomass industry. And what's fueling this problem is subsidies from UK energy bills. Drax is getting around £2 million every single day in renewable subsidies to burn trees from the UK government. And this money is coming from an extra charge on our energy bills. While millions of people are facing fuel poverty, we're being forced to pay for Drax's tree burning. So these subsidies are a disaster for forests, for wildlife, for communities, and for the climate. Hundreds of scientists wrote to President Biden and other world leaders in 2021, highlighting that burning wood is terrible for the climate and that it makes the climate crisis worse, even when it replaces coal, oil, or natural gas. And in the UK, the Climate Change Committee said in 2023 that the sustained use of large-scale biomass is not compatible with reaching net zero. So we're facing this problem of subsidies for this company that's a massive polluter, but together we can show solidarity with communities around the world who are being impacted by Drax, and we can stop these terrible subsidies. And this is a really key time for us to take action because the government has announced plans in the past few weeks that it wants to extend Drax's subsidies. And in February, it said it was going to extend these subsidies to 2031. And it's just published new draft legislation to overturn a really progressive 2018 law so that it can give Drax new subsidies. Now, the government is claiming that the new subsidies for Drax are value for money and that the wood will only come from sustainable sources. The reality is that Drax's subsidies were supposed to end in 2027, and now the government wants to extend them. And in the draft legislation, there is no time limit for the new subsidies. And it's going to offer Drax a really high fixed price. This is not good value for money. It's going to mean billions more from our energy bills to allow Drax to keep polluting communities, burning trees, and producing climate-wrecking emissions. And there is no obligation for Drax to capture and store any of the carbon it produces. And the government has said it will tighten sustainability standards, but it's not actually revealing that these sustainability standards are a voluntary scheme set up by the biomass industry itself. Instead of the government extending these subsidies, it has an alternative. It could stop the subsidies and transfer them to real climate solutions like wind power, solar power, and warm homes. This would have massive benefits. It would protect forests, wildlife, communities, and the climate, and it would create lots of green jobs and support a just transition for Yorkshire. So we really need to take action together, and we'd love to have your help because this draft legislation from the government is not the final decision. MPs will have a chance to oppose it, and there's going to be a vote in Parliament. We've already got some MPs who are speaking out, but we need many more to take action. And next week, we've got the Drax AGM on Thursday. We're going to have some really fun actions for that. And we're going to have a new MPE action coming out, which Mary will tell us more about. So we'd love it if you can help us take action and get lots of MPs on board to say we do not want any more subsidies for this massive polluter. And we're going to hear now about how amazing communities in the southern USA are standing up to Drax and saying they do not want this terrible company wrecking their communities. And to tell us more, I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Adam from Dogwood Alliance. Can I pass over to you, Adam? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sally, and thank you for that presentation and all the pictures and the overview. And um, Sally is right that the biomass industry is bad for our forests, it's bad for our climate, and it's bad for our communities. Um, I'm going to talk mainly today about the impact that Drax has had on the communities in the U.S. South, as well as the forests a little bit. The climate piece I'll set aside for now, but there's a host of information on that, and specifically about some of the pushback and the victories that we're experiencing. So here in the U.S. South, we are the world's largest exporter of wood pellet biomass that's being exported to Drax, other European countries, as well as to Asian markets. We export more wood pellets than anywhere else in the entire world. And generally, to understand what's happening in the US South, you also have to understand the forest dynamics of the US South, as well as the social and economic dynamics of the US South. We are one of the United States poorest areas of the country. And as well, we have an incredibly large forest products industry. We are one of the world's largest producers of wood products, not just biomass, but paper and pulp. All kinds of wood products are produced from the US South. Also, our forests down here, which I think as often I've done this work as said for 11 years, and in traveling over to the UK or to Europe, as I've done in the past, it was always amazing to talk about how most of our forests are actually privately owned here in the U.S. South. Nearly 90% of those forests are privately owned, and there are little to no, basically zero laws requiring any sort of a forest landowner, to follow any sort of sustainability criteria on their own land. And I'm not kidding when I say that. If somebody wants to clear cut and leave it alone, they can do that. If somebody wants to clear cut directly up to a stream or river, they can do that. There's nothing really governing private land ownership in a forest land ownership in the US South. There are voluntary measures that many landowners follow, but there are no laws or regulations. And so that's a very unique situation that we have here. This is not publicly owned forest land. The forests that Drax are logging and clear felling here in the US South are in private ownership. And so those private landowners it's a completely different than going through an official government process and actually being able to ensure sustainability standards. And so, and because of that, the US South, we often call it Dogwood, it's the wild, wild west of logging. And so really, because of that, anything goes. And our communities who are in the US South, who experience these facilities, biomass and otherwise, really suffer. As I mentioned, these are some of the poorest areas of the country. are some of the areas with the highest rates of industrial logging. I was born and raised in Eastern Kentucky, in the mountains of Eastern Kentucky. We dealt with coal growing up. I grew up about 10 miles from the nearest mountaintop removal site. We had coal trains and coal trucks going through my town all growing up. It's a very similar type of extractive economy to the poverty that was experienced in the mountains of Appalachia in coal mining country, to the poverty that is experienced in industrial logging country. They are one and the same in the type of extractive industries that we see. Additionally, the wood pellet biomass facilities that Drax is either buys from or owns themselves are placed within what we would call an environmental justice community. An environmental justice community is a community that both has high rates of poverty or not a strong economic system, or there are many social factors that aren't up to the national averages, as well as high rates of communities of color and people of color. Um, and that is we did a study that showed that a wood pellet biomass facility that's sourcing Drax or any other bioenergy facility is more than twice as likely to be placed in an environmental justice community as it is otherwise. And these facilities are woefully underregulated. We are just now getting caught up on some of the pollution regulations that should have been required on these wood pellet facilities. And because of that, many of these communities have been suffering significantly from the pollution and the air quality impacts from these wood pellet facilities. Dust in the air, having to change their air home filters almost weekly because they are clogged with wood dust from the facilities, chemicals being pumped into the air, high rates of asthma and cancer in these communities, really just ravaging the quality of life of the folks who are living in and around these communities. At Dogwood, we've made it a priority to go out, help educate, honestly, at the beginning, and also engage with the communities who are facing these wood pellet facilities directly. Like I mentioned, we have several here in the state of North Carolina. For this, as we're focused on Drax, Drax has most of its wood pellet facilities in the what we call the Gulf South or the Deep South. That's in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. That's really where Drax has concentrated their wood pellet manufacturing, is in those Gulf South states. Um, and again, the dynamics are no different than you would find in any other resource extractive and pollution type industry. They move into impoverished areas that don't have many options. They sell them on a narrative of bringing jobs, bringing economic prosperity, bringing a form of renewable energy to their town. And what they get is a highly toxic plant being placed often closest to the most economically disadvantaged area of the town, and essentially rubber stamped by state and local authorities because they don't know any better and there's no pushback. And so we've been working for years to build up grassroots power across the South, and then be able to translate that power from the local community level, not only to stop the facilities from being sited and expand, but also to be able to stop the subsidies, as Sally mentioned, in the United Kingdom or from Europe or from the US government, and saying that this is not a form of renewable energy, this is not a form of clean energy, this is a form of energy or an industry that is making communities sick, that does not need to be subsidized by the government. So, as you can imagine, I'm sure everybody here is, um, maybe has some story of organizing and trying to fight a big polluter. And we face a huge uphill battle. The dynamics politically at a local and state level that we experience in the US South, also at a national level, are an uphill battle for these communities. You have to understand too about organizing, and some of you may have in rural areas, is that folks they have the fight in them, but they are also tired from just existing in a lot of ways. The energy that it takes to exist every day when your town is polluted, the energy that it takes to exist every day when you have to drive over an hour to just see the doctor and to come back, and when so many in your community are sick, to get healthy food, to get water for it, the energy that it takes. And so when you're organizing there as well, I just want to point out, like, the folks are they are so strong and resilient, and at the same time they have so much working against them that it takes time. It's This is nothing that would go viral. You can't have a viral thing and then all of a sudden, the articles in the New York Times and everything changes. It doesn't work like this on the ground. It takes long-term power relationship building that creates a dynamics where community members are empowered and educated and well resourced enough to be able to make their voices heard to decision makers. And that takes a really long time. But we are committed to doing that because there is nothing more powerful than people who are being directly impacted, making their voices heard directly to decision makers. And I know that so I'll get to the Drax AGM, I'll be relatively quick here, but I do want to tell a story about the town of Gloucester, Mississippi. So Gloucester, Mississippi is a very rural town. It's about an hour northeast of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So it's right near the Mississippi-Louisiana border. Drax has one of their wood pellet bioenergy facilities there. It's often called the AMIT, AMIT, Amite County Amite Bioenergy Plant. It's in Amite County, Mississippi. Um, Dogwood started to enter that community around 2022, and meet with members of the community there about the Drax facility, and started to educate them on what actually was this wood pellet facility. And to make a long story short, over the past 2.5 to 3 years, we have worked in partnership, and so many other organizations as well have lent resources, work in partnership to educate that community, work with them on organizing around to stop this Drax facility and essentially meet the community's demand, which is to shut it down. They want the facility to shut down and to stop. Um, the stories that have come out of that are shocking and incredible. What people who live next to these facilities, if you were to go down there, I would say Southern Environmental Law Center did a health study, and the vast majority of people have breathing machines, asthma pumps. Children get sick often. I talk to the organizers often, and there isn't weeks that go by that they're not preparing or have attended someone's funeral in town. It is incredibly sad. It is something that you would see out of a documentary or a movie. I mean, and it is real life for these people. I can't even begin to translate the suffering that they have endured at the hands of this Drax facility. Um, Again, all in the name of clean, renewable energy that is being subsidized by government dollars in the UK, and a little bit here in the US as well. Um, so we've been organizing there. We've had a whole host of things. We've had the Environmental Protection Agency, when it still existed here in the U.S., to come on down and to investigate. We've had we've had all different kinds of community organizing and power building. Drax has done their own things. They've created its own Gloucester, which that's the town, Gloucester Community Advisory Board, and they've tried to buy out the community. They give away turkeys every year to people as a way to try to, like, incentivize them to not speak out against the facility. But recently, Drax has tried to expand. They kept getting fined for excessive pollution at this facility in Gloucester. They had a $2.5 million fine, I believe, in 2023. They had another large fine last year in 2024 because they kept exceeding the pollution limits on what they were allowed to do. And so Drax essentially said, well, Drax went to the state and said, we need to expand our production and give us a license to pollute even more. And the permit hearing was just a couple weeks ago. I think there are some links that Sally will put in. There are links that Sally will put in. Oh, there's the link there. The statement on what happened. The permit hearing happened a couple weeks ago, and what you have to understand is this is Mississippi. And Mississippi, I can't remember the last time that a state level regulatory, this is the very conservative, at least that's the word we use here in the US, very conservative, industry friendly government and officials here in very rural Mississippi. I could not tell you the last time they would side with an environmental justice community over a big major corporation and polluter like Drax. But the community showed up to this hearing. We put pressure on the permit board. What was supposed to be a rubber stamp turned into a 3+ hour hearing from hearing testimonies from community members. The permit board did 2 separate times went into private session. It was like a legal drama. They went into a private session to debate. And at the end of the day, they denied Drax a permit to expand based on the fact that basically Drax couldn't prove that they would actually meet the new permit. They said that there's no way that you can prove to us that you can reduce the pollution, and so we're not going to give you license to pollute anymore. And the people that are suffering here is real. That is I can't tell you how major of a victory that is. I am sure that Drax and Will Gardner over in the UK, their jaws hit the floor when they heard that their permit was not approved in Mississippi to expand. And so it is a major, major victory for the organizing that's happened. And that is one of several that we've had, but one that's directly related to Drax here in Mississippi. And I will say too, the other link that's posted, and then I'll wrap it up here, but the other link that's posted is talks about a webinar that we just held, as well as in that blog is contained an action packet. And that action packet has links to organizations here in the US on the ground. It has links to actions that you can take and people that have been involved in this fight here in the Southern United States. So yeah, I think that's all I'll say right now, but I can't thank you enough for attending this, for being involved, for supporting us. I know that at the Drax AGM, which is going to be talked about, one of the community members, the community leader from the community of Gloucester, will be over in the United Kingdom. She's been there before, but Dr. Crystal Martin will be speaking at some of those rallies and attending the AGM. Thanks to Stop Burning Trees Coalition and Biofuel Watch for really leading the charge on bringing Dr. Martin over. And so just get involved and attend, and we feel the support from activists in the UK, and there is a connection here. There's a connection between people working together across the Atlantic to stop an absolutely insane industry. So thank you.
Oh, wow, that was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much, Adam. That was so inspirational. And we've already got some great questions for Adam in the chat. If you've got more questions, please feel free to keep adding them. And we're going to have some time after we hear our next speaker to have a Q&A. Massive thank you, Adam. That was absolutely wonderful. And we're going to hear now about are positive alternatives to this terrible industry, and that we don't have to keep using our energy bills to fund Drax's tree burning. We could invest in real climate solutions instead. And we're thrilled to be joined by Stu from Fuel Poverty Action. Stu is the campaign's lead at Fuel Poverty Action, which is a grassroots group here in the UK campaigning to protect people from fuel poverty by challenging rip-off energy companies and unfair policies that leave people enduring cold homes. And Fuel Poverty Action takes action for warm, well-insulated homes and clean and affordable energy that's under the control of people and communities, not private companies. And we're absolutely thrilled to be joined by you here today, Stu. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. I feel like I needed this today. It was a pleasure to hear from Adam, and I knew tonight was bound to be an educational experience and bring a new perspective despite this issue feeling, all too familiar to all of us now. Yeah, it fills you with rage that this government can be rolling out extended subsidies to Drax in 2025. If their plan goes through, we'll still be paying for Drax tree burning with our bills about a decade after the first panorama that Ali mentioned aired. So first of all, these subsidies will go on the part of our energy bills that are known as standing charges. So these are unavoidable fees that we all have to pay before our money buys even a single unit of energy. And they've increased significantly over the past few years to over £300 a year. As well as paying for these dodgy greenwashing subsidies, standing charges cover the operating costs of energy firms. It's essentially the equivalent of whenever you go to the supermarket, say, to do your weekly shop, having to pay an entrance fee to be let in the door. And even if you can't afford to buy any food and don't go to the supermarket for a few weeks, when you come back, you'll still owe all of those fees. If you run out of money on your meter, get cut off, and lose power in your home, you still have to pay the standing charge. Many people will turn off their gas for the whole year until they really need it in the winter, only to turn it on and find themselves in a heap of debt through an unpaid standing charge. Fuel Poverty Action has advocated for over a decade for standing charges to be scrapped. They are the biggest burden on the most fuel-poor households, barely using any energy at all. And even though this government doesn't believe in universal support for pensioners and scrapped the winter fuel payment, a similar sum of money, we all pay this universal and equal fee, whether you live in a tiny bedsit or a huge mansion. So we built massive pressure towards this demand until the need for reform couldn't be ignored. And just in the past few months, energy suppliers have been ordered by Ofgem to offer customers a zero standing charge tariff. But unfortunately, the UK's energy regulator is so weak that there's zero protection from these costs just being added elsewhere to our bills instead. Ofgem have adopted the government line that there's no money available for customers to eliminate these costs entirely, which would make me laugh if I could even remember how. It was reported at the beginning of this month that energy firms have pocketed £500 billion profit since the winter of 2021-22. So they've been swimming in our cash. And before even these gargantuan profits, their overheads as well would make you sick on things like marketing, again, paid by the standing charge. Who hasn't seen their supplier's name sponsoring a sports team or a music venue or on a prime billboard spot? The standing charge will pay for massive executive salaries. So SSE, for example, just hired a new CEO on £1 million salary a year. And of course, further money could be saved and used to lift people out of fuel poverty by ending subsidies towards climate disasters like Drax, especially when we know of real climate solutions that could also bring down everyone's bills for good. I can share an update with you tonight that hopefully some of you will be familiar with FPA's flagship campaign, Energy for All. 2 years ago, we launched our Energy for All manifesto signed by Biofuel Watch, Drax, and over 250 other organisations. And as we speak, we are in the process of bringing this up to date to address new challenges and centre justice as far as we can. So if I am quickly able to, I will try and share my screen. In fact, I'll need to send a request to the host. Great, thank you. So I will quickly show you our manifesto on our webpage and quickly run through. The first point of this is really the crux of the campaign. Each household under Energy for All will receive free of charge enough energy to ensure it can cover its needs. This includes, for instance, adequate heating, lighting, cooking, hot water, refrigeration, charging phone and digital connectivity, and where needed, hearing aids, medical equipment, stair lifts, and wheelchairs. Point two of this was how it would be paid for and delivered, and this is part of what I want to draw your attention to. Originally, 2 years ago, we wrote, "This free energy will be paid for by higher tariffs on usage exceeding what is needed, by windfall tax on fossil fuel corporations, and by recouping the millions of pounds now spent daily on subsidising the fossil fuel industry." So the revision to this point, the final point there is particularly important. And this is draft, I must emphasize, but it now reads as follows: recouping billions in public money being spent subsidizing fossil fuels and other damaging projects like nuclear, hydrogen, biomass, and carbon capture, use and storage. So we want to make this explicit in our demand and bring in this struggle, which we're talking about tonight, into the campaign. And in addition to this second point as well, on how we would pay for and deliver this universal energy guarantee, is really the issue that sparked the entire reframing of the campaign. In the UK, we currently spend billions in public subsidies also for wind and solar farms to be turned off during the windiest and sunniest periods. This is something that's receiving increasing attention at the moment. Energy companies are investing heavily in lithium battery farms, which will of course require mining in the global south, mass water and land use, and litter green belts, damaging nature and ecology here in the UK, so that they can store this excess energy that's currently being wasted and then sell it back to us at premium, when instead it could be going to households when it's plentiful, free of charge. So we want this surplus energy to go to households so that we can do our washing, charge devices, cook a meal, heat hot water tanks, all for free while harnessing the direct power of the wind and the sun. Finally, passing on the benefit of cheap renewable electricity production onto our bills and reducing reliance on polluters like the gas and Drax, of course. That anti-climate narrative of what would happen when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, ignores the reality that masses of clean energy are going to waste during the highest periods of production. And those who think that free energy is a bit utopian ignore the reality that it's already in existence. We're just missing out on it, and it's going to waste. So finally, just to add in terms of further real climate solutions that could also bring down our bills, I'll draw your attention to point 3 of our manifesto. So, on this theme again of energy demand and security, which ministers use to justify extended subsidies for Drax, the elephant in the room is the UK's leaky housing stock. We're all well aware of the potential of retrofitting and insulating homes to bring down our bills, reduce energy demand and emissions, create jobs, improve health and overall quality of life. But unfortunately, we've seen time and again poor retrofit jobs that leave tenants worse off while enriching cowboy contractors, large and small, off of fat sums yet again of public money. So hence point 3, we have called for UK housing to be urgently brought up to a standard where people are not made ill by their own homes. It's a scandal where homes in one of the world's richest countries are the coldest and dampest in Europe. Safe, non-toxic, non-flammable installation, appropriate to building, and sound heating systems must be installed by skilled workers in consultation with residents. And we're thrilled that our work in this area is now expanding. We launched a new combined project last month with Peace and Justice Project, Acorn the Union, MedAct, and others called Retrofit for the Future. So we are collectively demanding a workforce skills program. We are listening to the needs of residents, protecting against rent rises and eviction, and accountability for work done wrong. So this is another key initiative which Fuel Poverty Action is getting involved with this year, and we would encourage any retrofit enthusiasts to support this project. So we can name any number of dual solutions to the climate and poverty crisis, and continuing to pay Drax achieves neither. So while this government is devoid of answers, we need to articulate the solutions that are already out there. And believe me, energy market reform is on the way imminently in the next few months to a year. There is a lot of debate going on what is the solution to a problem that everyone understands is there. So let's not despair. Let's keep organising. And thanks for having me here tonight. It's been a pleasure.
That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Stu. And it's so inspirational to hear about how we could have a much fairer energy system that actually benefits communities. We don't have to waste public money on big polluters like Drax. And to find out more about how we can take action, particularly next week, I'm very excited to pass to Mary from Stop Burning Trees. Mary is a researcher and climate justice campaigner who works for the Stop Burning Trees Coalition. And Mary has a history of direct action, and in recent years, she has focused on campaigning against Drax with the wonderful Axe Drax group and with Stop Burning Trees. Thank you so much, Mary. It's great to have you here.
Amazing. Thank you, Sally. And thank you, Adam and Stu. That was just, really excellent to hear from both of you, both about the brilliant community organising that's happening in the US, but also the amount of solidarity that is needed from us, since it is our energy bills that are disgustingly and unfortunately funding Drax's destruction, and of course from Stu about how much better our energy system could be. So I guess just very briefly, I'm going to talk to you about Drax's AGM coming up on the 1st of May. Last year, as Sally said, Drax received about 869 million in subsidies. They made about 1 billion in profits. Their CEO, Will Gardner, took home a 303 million pay packet, and this is all coming out of our energy bills. And so for Drax's AGM this year, we want to make it incredibly clear to Drax that we will not let them continue to get away with this. We will not continue to let them continue ripping off our bills, destroying our forests, polluting communities, causing devastating health impacts, and fundamentally just wrecking our planet. So there's kind of a few different ways we come up with for people to take action this year during Drax AGM. Firstly, there's a lot of action you can just take from home. I'll share a link to an action pack in the chat, but from social media, posting, tagging key MPs, and then also we'll be launching on the day of Drax's AGM a brand new e-action targeting MPs specifically over the new subsidy arrangement that they're trying to force through Parliament at the moment. And if this goes ahead, as it currently stands, Drax will just be receiving billions more in subsidies to the detriment of communities abroad, forests, and fundamentally our bills as well. And then there's also a huge range of actions happening around the country. In London, we'll be outside Drax's AGM from 9:30 as shareholders are coming in, making it extremely clear what we think of Drax, and that is that Drax are climate criminals and they need to stop polluting communities. It was absolutely gone beyond enough. It is a disgrace that this is continuing to happen in our names, and so we're going to be there outside with banners and chanting, placards listing Drax's litany of crimes, and making very clear that we do not agree with this, and this is not in our names to Drax and its shareholders as they gather and celebrate their record-breaking profits. And then there's going to be a range of other actions happening around the country. I think Nicola's not here, so I'll briefly talk about the one in York, in the centre of York, just on Parliament Street at I think 1 p.m. There's going to be an incredible musical, theatrical demo drawing attention to Drax's destruction and also having a bit of fun with it. I'll share a link in the chat to a map of all the different actions happening around the country. And then past Drax's AGM, there is so much work for us to be doing here in the UK to stop Drax and its destruction, to put a stop to these subsidies, and also to push for the things that we really need, like retrofitting our homes properly, investing in public transport, a just transition for workers. So I'll share a few links of how to get involved with all of that too. And I'll pass back to you, Sally. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary. That was absolutely wonderful. And there are also a couple of actions happening. If you're near Liverpool, Katie can share a little bit about what's planned for there next Thursday, the 1st of May.
Yeah, so plans in Liverpool are to meet at Central Station at 10:30. And I think our local XR group have been working hard making some tree costumes. So there's going to be trees on trains with a static demo at or a outreach gathering at the entrance of the station, and then people traveling up and down on the train line giving out leaflets. I think I know there's a few people from Liverpool here that I can see who may have more details, but yeah, it looks set to be a very good action.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Katie. And if you happen to be in Scotland on Tuesday, there's going to be a Drax demonstration in Edinburgh at 5 p.m. at the foot of the Mound. We're very excited that Stu's going to be coming to speak, and we're also going to have the Scotland Tree Gs dancing to Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, doing some discobedience, and we're going to be teaching some dance moves. So if you'd like to come along and leafleting, everyone is very welcome. And if you would like to organise your own action, there's lots of information in the amazing AGM action pack that Mary has put together, and we can support you, and we can send out leaflets and help with posters, and we'd love to help if you would like to organise your own demonstration for Drax's AGM or take action from home. And we've got some time now for some questions. So if anyone would like to ask a question, I think Katie is going to ask a couple of questions for Stu and Adam and Mary. I'll pass over to you, Katie. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so some people have asked some questions, but I think they've already been answered in the chat. So I don't know if anyone has got any more questions that they want to ask to either Adam or Stu. I can see a financial question in the chat as well. Do you want to put your hands up or post in the chat? I know that one of the questions is about whether people who are suffering with the health problems get any kind of support. I don't know if you want to answer that kind of and maybe elaborate, Adam, that they get any support from, I know you said in your response that Dogwood doesn't support with that, but do they get any support from the state or any other organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, so specifically with personal medical devices that folks need, Dogwood doesn't directly support with those things. In relation to that, what we have done with partners is support on air quality monitoring systems in the communities, making sure that they have the information available to adequately advocate for themselves to decision makers. I'm not as I think there are a variety of ways in which people do get support on that, and there have been some organizations that have provided direct support to individuals for things like breathing machines. But that is not something I'm very well versed in. There are certainly government programs and such that people that lower income folks apply for and get subsidized medical equipment here in the U.S. But that is not my area of expertise. But it's a great question. I saw Teresa, I know you went off mute and kind of had your hand raised. Was that
Yes, I put a question on the chat. On what grounds is Drax giving subsidies? Because they make masses of profit. Why do they need subsidies?
What a fantastic question. Absolutely. That's what we're asking too. We do not think they should have subsidies.
And I have another one. Would it be possible or reasonable to try to organize sort of a strike of paying that part of the bills that goes to Drax?
Good question. Maybe that would be for Stu.
Something on the line of Ralph Nader's work.
Yeah, I can't. Well, one particularly large group tried to organize a bill strike, and we collaborated with them back in 2022. People might remember the Don't Pay movement, and it kind of had the wind taken out of its sails by the energy price guarantee that Liz Truss introduced. But yeah, this is a tried and tested tactic. It just requires the effective organizing tools. Just to say about that movement, I think they built up a lot of momentum. One thing that I think crucially needs to be in place if we undertake a strategy like that is support for people to know their rights and to protect themselves, because we are still receiving people contacting us. We are like I suppose Dogwood, what Adam said, we are not a kind of support or advocacy advocacy in some ways, but we're not a direct support organization like a charity. But we still get people getting in touch with us saying, I'm being chased for this debt that I owe because I went on an energy bill strike with Don't Pay 2 years ago. So we crucially would need building blocks in place, I think, for people to understand their rights going into it and protect themselves going forward. But yeah, I'm all for the tactic and the strategy if we can put those things in place.
Thanks, Stu. Adam, I can see you've got your hands up. Is that to respond? And then we've got a couple of other hands.
Yeah, and I'll be quick. I think why Drax is subsidized is a relatively, actually, somewhat complicated question, but also, could be simple too. I agree with what Gary put in the chat. Is it's a case study in corporate welfare. I will also say specifically on the biomass industry. Part of the reason, so here you have an industry that at its baseline, it buys wood from clear-cut forests in foreign countries, it puts them on trucks, it ships them to a polluting facility, where that facility pollutes, it makes wood pellets, it puts them on other trucks, it puts them to a port, they put them on ships, they ship them across the ocean, then they put it on a train, then they ship it to a facility and they burn it. And it's all done in the name of climate change and renewable energy. And why in God's name would, if you describe that situation to like a 4-year-old, my son is 4, and if I told him that, he would be appalled. He would be like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing that? So why often do we have, I don't know it or not, but potentially well-intentioned policymakers who are trying, or at least saying they're doing something about climate change, decide to give subsidies for an industry like Drax who's burning this wood. And again, one of the reasons I will say, and Dogwood, we are also a forest protection organization, but one of the reasons is because the way that, especially, I think globally, the way that we value and account for nature, and specifically forests, is completely bonkers. The example that I often give to people is here in North Carolina, if Drax buys wood from 100 acres of clear-cut forest, they go and they clear-cut 100 acres of those beautiful wetland forests that Sally showed us pictures with. On paper, that's still considered a forest. We still count that as forest land. And any of the carbon that was released by cutting it is not counted on the books, because the only way that we count the carbon is if that forest gets developed into a parking lot, which is also bad, but doesn't often happen in very rural environments. So you can clear cut 100 acres of forest, or clear fell, as y'all say, clear fell 100 acres of forest, and it's still on paper counted as a forest. So Drax will go to the UK politicians and say, hey, the forest in the US South where we're logging is growing. Forest land is growing. And by the definitions, they are correct. But what reality it sees, and so part of it is how we fundamentally value nature, and we are only valuing forests when they're logged and not actually when they're standing. And until we change that structure, on paper, something what Drax is doing might make sense on paper, but in reality, for what the climate sees, for what people experience, for what we experience as and transitioning to address climate change across the world, that fundamentally also needs to change, and is part of the reason why Drax gets these subsidies and people make a case for it. That does not legitimize it in any way, but that's just the reality that Drax capitalizes on to receive a lot of these subsidies, and a reality that has to change on a broad scale to give a wholesale stop to this industry.
Thanks for that, Adam. We're at real risk of running over here, but I'm just going to take Jennifer because you've had your hands up for ages.
Thank you. Yes, my question is, how do we actually get the UK government to act on this? I mean, I thought I was quite well informed about Drax, and I've signed all sorts of petitions and done all sorts of things about it. But I didn't realise that we've got all this energy that could make it free for people. And you've got all people being fed up at the moment because their bills are so high and their cost of living is high and all the rest of it. And yet somehow we don't seem to be able to turn this into action. And it will really cheer me up if I mean, I know you're all doing wonderful things and it's great, and I'm so pleased that I came tonight. But how can we get government to actually change? Thank you.
That's an excellent question. I don't know if we've got any quick answers to that one, but I think already by joining up and getting the input from Stu this evening about the campaign and all this free energy that's available, you know, as Sally said right at the beginning, we can fight this by working together. And I think that's what we need to do. So starting with taking part in our AGM actions if people can. I don't know if anyone else has any closing words to say, because we've just gone over time now. Shall I hand back to you, Sally?
Oh, thank you so much, Katie, and a massive thank you to our amazing speakers tonight. Huge thanks to Adam, Stu, and Mary, and to Katie. You're all absolutely wonderful, and a massive thank you to everybody for joining. It's been so lovely to be here with you today. I'm sorry we didn't have time for more questions, but huge thanks. We'll be sending out a follow-up email with the recording and all the links that were shared tonight, and also the action pack. And keep a lookout next week. We're going to be having the new MP e-action launching that Mary was talking about. And if you'd like to get involved in the AGM, please feel free to email us. We can pop our email in the chat, and we'd love to help if you'd like to join an action or if you'd like to organise your own action. And massive thank you to everybody. It's so lovely to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Fantastic.
much. Great rest of the
Bye-bye.
evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.